Please share the information provided in this video. Always remember that a crucial part of removing a person's confusion is understanding his or her unique source of it. Now here is the proof for God's existence. Everything that begins to exist has a cause of its existence. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause of its existence. This cause must be God, therefore God exists. I'll say it again. Everything that begins to exist has a cause of its existence. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause of its existence. This cause must be God. Therefore, God exists. You may be saying, now wait a minute, Ben, that doesn't really prove that God exists. You probably at some point in that proof, you see where you think it's not true and you think it's not rational and just doesn't work. If that's you, then get comfortable and I'll work through this proof one step at a time. Everything that begins to exist has a cause of its existence. That certainly seems true enough. I mean, I don't know about you, but I certainly don't see stuff popping into existence without a cause. But scientists claim that on the subatomic level, this happens all the time. What they say is that subatomic particles pop into existence without a cause regularly. That leaves one burning question. Could it be that supernatural forces are causing this to happen? If we say that such a question is just too silly to ask, then why are we talking about a supernatural God in the first place? The problem is that a supernatural God is just as invisible as nothing at all. God would be beyond the natural realm of existence in which we inhabit. This leaves us with a problem. There's no way to use any sort of scientific tool to determine if something can come from nothing. I mean, such a question is outside the realm of science. Because in the end, science is based on human observations. We may have very special tools, but they're never going to observe something that exists beyond the physical universe. We are going to answer this question. We're going to have to use logic. That's our only tool left. Now, everything must be logical. The basis of logic is that a thing is what it is and is not what it is not. This is also obviously true for God. Let's return to the idea of something beginning to exist without a cause and try to analyze it logically. Imagine that a bunny rabbit begins to exist without a cause. Ask yourself this. Was there any reason it had to be a bunny rabbit? The answer is an obvious no. When things begin to exist without a cause, then there is nothing that can control what is and is not allowed to pop into existence in this way. Any such controller would be a cause. But this creates a problem. What if an unstoppable force and an immovable object both pop into existence and meet up with each other? Which one would win? Well, they would both have to win, or else they aren't really unstoppable and immovable. But that is logically absurd. That makes as much sense as giving a monkey a typewriter. When I say that 5 equals 7, I've just made a meaningless statement. But that is exactly the same thing as an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. There's nothing logically wrong with an unstoppable force or an immovable object in and of themselves. The problem is when they meet each other. Logically they could exist, but they could just never meet. If they pop into existence without a cause, then logically nothing can stop them from meeting. Nothing can stop that from happening, because any such controller or stopper of what could and could not exist would be a cause. In fact, if things can pop into existence out of nothing, then anything can happen at any time for no reason at all. A Tyrannosaurus Rex could appear in your bedroom or on the moon. All your belongings could vanish in an instant. There would be no point in asking why any of this happened. It came from nothing. This would be completely destructive to the entire field of science itself, which is no small task. Science ultimately looks for why things happen, but if things happen for no reason, there isn't even a way to tell what the odds are on how often that happens. So the universe obviously didn't pop into existence out of nothing. But we may begin to wonder, perhaps the universe has just always been here. Well, always is quite a long time. We're talking about forever, infinity, the eternal. Again, we can use logic to answer this question. Can today be the day at the end of forever? If the universe has been here for an infinitely long amount of time, then day after day after day just kept ticking away. And since an infinite number of days precedes today, then today marks the day that infinity finished. This is an obviously logical absurdity. It's just can't happen. Therefore, the universe has a beginning, a birthday. I've heard people respond to this point by claiming that it's possible for time to just constantly loop back around. That time is like a circle. But this does nothing to resolve the issue. How many times have we looped around? I mean, if it's an infinite number of times, then today is the end of forever. Then time has a beginning. I've heard other people respond to this in a different way. They say that the distance between two ticks of a clock can be divided an infinite number of times. Think about it: a half second, a quarter second, an eighth second, a 20th second, a billionth second. It's easy to see that the maximum number of divisions is infinite, because you can also talk about 1 infiniteth of a second. Now, what these people are arguing is that since the distance from 1 second to the next crosses an infinite number of points, then we reach the end of infinity with every tick of the clock. But they are wrong. When you take a second and divide it an infinite number of times, then you get an infinite number of points, but you also get each point having 0 time within it. The distance from 1 second to the next is going to stay 1 second long, no matter how many times you divide it up. You don't make time any longer with divisions. Still, other people argue that the universe was caused to exist by some previous universe. They say that there is an infinite number of universes caused to exist by a previous one each time. But you still see the obvious problem. If such a multiplicity of universes exists, then we are at the end of an infinitely long chain of universes. Each one preceded the next or came before. So yet again, this is just a fancy way of saying that the universe has been here forever. And today cannot be the day at the end of forever. Now, the strangest thing you hear people say is that time is an illusion. They say that it only appears to us that time is moving forward, but really there's no such thing as time. The problem here is that you and I still live in a world where we obviously experience time. Saying that our world is just a dream is the same as saying that all of life is just a dream. It may be a dream, but it's still life. It's still the world we live in. If there is some other plane of existence outside of time, how is that any different from God Himself? I mean, after all, time obviously exists and our world didn't come from nothing, so something outside of time must have caused it. Finally, we begin to see that something did cause our universe to exist, but is this cause really God? Could it be something else? Perhaps it's some sort of inanimate object. I mean, when a rock rolls down a hill and hits you in the head, an inanimate object is the cause of your pain. It may be just a rock, but it did hurt you. The problem here is that whatever this cause of the universe is, it exists beyond the natural world or universe. It created the natural universe. This means that it created time and space. So whatever this thing is, it's timeless. Timeless things stay the same. If such a timeless cause did cause our universe to exist, it would do so timelessly. But that would mean that our universe would be timeless as well. It would be eternally causing the universe to exist. Since we obviously experience time moving forward, then it can't just cause the universe to exist based on what it is. It has to have the ability to conceive, to choose, to purpose, instead of just exist. So obviously the universe was caused to exist by a being. If a being exists outside time, But a lot of people argue that such a being would not be God. Yeah, you heard me right. There are a lot of people out there willing to argue that although the universe was caused to exist by somebody, this somebody is no one special, admitting the incredible while denying the obvious. But they say that he's not an all-powerful or all-knowing somebody. Family Guy even pictures creation as God arm wrestling with his roommate and farting out the universe in the struggle to cheat for the win. But again, there is a problem. If a being exists outside time, then this being can be at all times at the same time. This being would see the future and the past happening at the same time. Such a being would be able to take 0 time to gain all information, and this being is all-knowing, then this God is also all-powerful, because knowing everything means knowing how to do anything. So yeah, this could be a someone other than God, but still an all-powerful, all-knowing creator of the universe. And while we're at it, we might as well add that such a being would give the universe its purpose for existing too, and from this purpose we could determine the day-to-day morals of life, and this being would clearly determine the destiny of all existence as well. So yeah, it's not God, it's just the origin of existence, the source of all meaning, the giver of all morality, and the ruler of eternal destiny. If this being is the source of all goodness itself, then any evil we do is basically a request for God to get out of our lives. I'm guessing we hope God doesn't grant such a request, because having the source of all goodness out of your life doesn't sound very good at all. The basic story of Christianity is that this God became one of us and suffered what we were going to get for our evil. Then amazingly, this Jesus rose from the dead, defeating evil itself. I'm not going to give you any reasoning for that part of the story in this video, but what is truly amazing is the Christians. Christians are the people who have believed all this God and Jesus stuff. Amazingly, there is no group of people I find more resistant to the proof for God's existence that I just gave you, or any proofs. Christians keep saying that we just need to take it on faith that God exists. My response to the Christians is this: Romans chapter 1. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified Him as God nor gave thanks to Him. But their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal human beings and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore, God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do what ought not to be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding. That means they don't think. No fidelity. No love. No mercy. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. And as we read on in the book of Romans, he makes it clear that this applies to all people. He basically divides them into either the Gentiles or the Jews. And he makes the case that it applies to both groups. I hope you found the information in this video informative and enjoyable. Thank you for your time.